Welcome, friends. We're so glad that you have joined us for another week of worship at First Lutheran Church in Clarion. Our worship continues to be a hybrid model, so whether you are joining us online or you are worshiping in person in our sanctuary with masks and social distancing, we are so glad that you're here. If you are joining us online, I hope that you have found our YouTube page easy to access either the whole service or parts as you see fit. We, your pastors, continue to encourage you to assess your risks and choose which worship experience is best for you and your health. We continue, as your pastors, to safely lead from our home, limiting our own exposures. As we begin this second week of Advent, we continue this focus on the nearness of God as we keep our hearts awake and expectant, leading up to the birth of the Christ child. This week, we focus on what it looks like to prepare. Preparations can take a lot of different forms. I bet your Thanksgiving preparations may have taken a different form than usual this year. Maybe you scaled down your menu to portions that were fitting for those living in your home or a smaller guest list. Maybe you even changed your menu from a big turkey to just a little steak because they came in single servings. Our preparations here for the Clarion Ministerial Community Thanksgiving meal looked a lot different this year too. We had a stack of to-go boxes, we had a long line of tables with the meal spread out and volunteers on both sides of the table, and we would pass the box, filling it as it went from station to station. After those boxes were full, they were loaded into coolers, the coolers were loaded into the cart was taken out to the curbside, and then those to-go meals were delivered. This year, that meal happened to serve 225 people or so, and the meal was such a blessing to many in these strange times. But the preparations and the day itself still look different. Our preparations for welcoming the Christ child into our lives can take different forms as well. Advent preparations were not made to be the same every year, marked with decorations, candies, and presents. Advent preparations aren't a preparation for God to show up. The message is not that God is coming from this distant future or coming to us some distant time in the future. Listen to these words from our ELCA Advent study called God with Us from this week. We often view the future with expectant hope that God will come and set things right. The kind of forward thinking is important and forward looking, but this yearning for the fulfillment of God's promises must be tempered by the faith that sees God already at work in the world as it is. We are not waiting on God. If anything, perhaps, God is waiting on us. Even as we await the final fulfillment of the promise, God is already at work. Friends, this Advent, I encourage you to live as though your preparations are as an expectant mother. Have you ever seen an expectant family doing absolutely no preparations to welcome a child into their home until the child's born? Of course not. They prepare as though they have already welcomed this child into their lives. They move rooms around, they make space for supplies, the things they need. Because this child is a part of their everyday. That's why parents who struggle with grief over a miscarriage have such a hard time. Because in their world, the child was already a part of their life, even if it wasn't yet born. That's a huge loss. Our everyday lives can reflect the same. God is with us. That's what this season is about. Advent is meant to remind us that every day we live and every day we breathe, we do it as God, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are present in our lives, bringing about the kingdom where God seeks to love us through his grace and releases us from all that holds us captive. knowing that God is with us. I want to highlight a few joys and concerns as we continue worshiping together. We've named a few of our church family members who are struggling with COVID, and those folks, thankfully, have recovered. So Renee and Larry and Adam and Madeline thank us for our prayers as they were recovering at home. If you have any other prayer requests that you would like us to pray for as your church family or as just your pastors, please send us a note. We would be glad to pray for you. You can send those in email form, firstlutheranclarion@gmail.com. We would love to pray with you and for you. Now, before we jump back in and continue our worship together, I want to invite you to greet whomever you are with. Maybe that's making eye contact with the person next to you in your home. Maybe that's together in the congregation. Give a socially distanced air, peace sign, or a wave, or even shoot someone that you know and love a message, whether that's text or messaging, whatever form it takes. Take the opportunity right now to reach out to someone you care about.